Welcome to the Workology Podcast, a podcast for the disruptive workplace leader. Join host Jessica Miller-Merrill, founder of Workology.com, as she sits down and gets to the bottom of trends, tools, and case studies for the business leader, HR, and recruiting professional who is tired of the status quo. Now here's Jessica with this episode of Workology.
This marks the fourth year of the Workology podcast, and it is truly a labor of love. And of course, I'm thankful for our sponsor, Clear Company. Thank you for helping support the work we do here, putting HR and workplace resources into bite-sized 25-minute episodes designed to provide you, the listener, with insights and just resources and information to help drive change in your workplaces. Podcasting is no easy feat. This episode here marks a total of 41 episodes for the year. We've spent over 40 hours recording and editing podcasts, as well as 120 hours building content, transcripts, editing graphics, and publishing those podcasts. I say all this because most people, I know I sure didn't, don't realize how labor-intensive a podcast actually is. So if you like this podcast or there's another podcast that you love, show them some love and let them know that you appreciate all the work that they're doing. And over the course of those 41 episodes this year, I wanted to share with you some of my favorite and most memorable podcast interviews. As part of our Best of series on Workology, we've created 3 separate episodes of our favorite excerpts from 2018. Each episode has 4 different interviews, giving you a look into the variety of podcast guests and topics that we've covered this year on Workology.
At the Inclusive Research Center, you focus on 3 dimensions of inclusive design. Can you walk us through these and maybe talk about how they apply to machine learning and AI technologies?
Sure. So universal design has a set of principles, and accessibility has a checklist. And one of the things that I was encouraged to do was to come up with a set of principles for inclusive design. But inclusive design is intended to be relative to the individual. So it's not a one-size-fits-all approach. It's a one-size-fits-one approach because we grew up in the digital domain, and the digital can be adaptive, unlike a building where you have to have the entrance work for everyone that might approach the building. A digital system can morph and adapt and present a different design to each one that visits that digital system. So instead of a set of principles, I devised the 3 dimensions. And the 3 dimensions are: the first dimension is that recognize that everybody's unique and help people to understand their own uniqueness and create systems that fit that unique diversity of requirements, or one size fits one. The second dimension is ensure that there is an inclusive process. This means designing the table so that everyone can participate in the decision-making and in the design, because we all benefit from diverse perspectives. We have far better planning, better prediction, much greater creativity if we have a diversity of perspectives participating in the design. And what you want in inclusive design is co-design, so authentic co-design, where the individual that the design is intended to be used by is part of the design process. And then the third dimension is recognize that we're in a complex adaptive system. No design decision is made in isolation. It reverberates out to all of the connected systems that are the context of the design. So create a design that benefits everyone. Create virtuous, not vicious cycles.
And the next piece of technology is really how you're laying out where people work within the physical space, because that's changing now as we have more and more virtual companies, virtual offices, where much of the work is being done at home or distant locations. So you really have to deal with that. And that's where you start looking at VR, virtual reality, jumps the distance of time and space and can put distant teams in the same room. So working with a major automotive manufacturer that have people designing cars that are on different continents and have to collaborate. And obviously that wouldn't be possible standing around and sculpting a piece of clay, but they could in VR stand around and make changes to a full-scale auto. They can blow up in any particular part or feature. They can see it with different lightings at different times of day. And it's the same physical, emotional empathy that you would get being in a room and collaborating with someone. So a way to make a virtual workforce feel like there's a physical space. So creating that virtual space that they work in, what that looks like, what it feels like, will go a long way in productivity and people enjoying the experience.
Let's take a bit of a reset from our Best of Workology podcast. Again, want to say a heartfelt thank you to our podcast sponsor, Clear Company. They are wonderful, and I appreciate you so much. I would love to hear from you guys and love to hear more about the types of content and resources and topics you want to hear more about. So you can follow us on Twitter at Workology, send us a tweet. You can also find us on Instagram and Facebook at Workology blog.
This podcast is sponsored by Clear Company. Clear Company is the world's fastest growing talent management platform, allowing companies to easily hire, retain, and engage more A-players. Visit clearcompany.com to sign up for a free demo.
Now, let's get on to our next favorite podcast interview.
Culture is something that is really just a subset of meaning. Culture is shared meaning.
Shared meaning. Okay. So how does an organization or a CEO or a leadership team help their employees find meaning if it's unique for every individual?
Yeah, so it's really important for organizations to understand how meaning works and to implement processes for meaning. Think about it this way. So in the course of our history, one of the things that we've not done yet is develop a process for meaning within the organization. Oftentimes, a few people at the top set the values of the organization, and really the values on the wall don't resonate with people. You may think that they do, and they may certainly tell you that when they're trying to get a job, but they really don't care about that because values are unique. And so contextually, values change in the marketplace and organizations need to change. And so they can't live up to their own values. The employees that tell you that those values resonate can't live up to those values because in any different circumstance that we're in, different values emerge. And that's how we deal with a particular circumstance. And so you wonder why engagement is low, turnover's high today, is because meaning is undergoing a shift from authority-based systems to process and personal-based systems. And we're seeing this all through culture, particularly in developed countries. And so what does this really mean for us? It means that we've built these amazing processes for channeling and trading resources as a species. And if you think about it, we've mastered those particular tools. And so even going back further, we've kind of been moving up Maslow's hierarchy, and we've just gotten to this point to where it's time to tap human creativity. It's time to tap what people really find meaningful. So how do you do that as an organization? Well, you have to start looking at the organization as a being on its own journey. And what is the organization's meaning, or raisons d'etre, the reasons for being? What's it doing in its environment? Why are people interacting with it? What type of fulfillment does it give to employees, customers, those types of things? You start to answer those questions and you start to expose the architecture of your culture, and people can more readily start to see where their meaning is shared and where it's not.
I do a talk for disabled individuals who are getting into the job market and who are applying for work. And I call it the cheat sheet talk of how to interview and get hired when you're disabled. And one of the things I say is traditionally there's a lot of fear and a lot of stress for a disabled person going in. They're not going to hire me. They're going to discriminate against me. They're going to have questions about how I do things, and that's going to be where the interview is focused on, not about me as a person and my talent. So my responses to that have varied over the years, but I finally, about 5 years ago, settled on and came to the realization that we can completely flip that. When I walk into an interview now, I walk in a position of leadership. I walk in with more information than that employer has on me, and with a level of expertise that that employer does not have. So in a way, I'm using this interview as an opportunity to teach, which puts me in the leadership role and puts me in the confident and capable leader role, rather than the supplicant, oh my gosh, will you hire me and will you pay me role of fear. And I think when you can walk in with that level of confidence and comfort, because you have one thing going for you, you know yourself, you know your disability, you know the accommodations that you need, you know the accessibility features you're going to need. So when they start asking these questions, that's your opportunity to lead and to say to these employers, having a disability has taught me to be diplomatic. It's taught me resourcefulness. It's taught me problem solving and innovation. It's taught me how to compromise. It's taught me how to lead. And that's just to go to the grocery store to pick up apples. I need all of those skills to just interact with society on a daily basis. So when you hire somebody with a disability, you're also hiring the set of skills they have developed to live with that disability in a society that is not designed for people with disabilities. And it takes a lot of ingenuity, creativity, and talents that employers search for to be able to live with a disability in today's society. And that's a hiring plus. But the disabled person has the chance to direct that narrative and to be comfortable with themselves in that body, in that interview, and to take that leadership role. So it's not a fear-based concern of intimidation and discrimination. It's a chance for us to walk in and say, so here's how this is going to go. I'm an expert in my own body, and let me teach you about what that looks like.
While it's been 4 years producing this podcast, this year marks my 13th year with Workology, which was formerly known as Blogging for Jobs. I truly love the human resources and workplace industry and work hard to provide content and resources to help you push boundaries, gain insights, and drive change at your employer and business. If you have a podcast idea or suggestion, you can send us a social media message. You can also fill out our contact form on workology.com. Thank you for Clear Company and their support. And to thank you for joining the Workology podcast, a podcast for the disruptive workplace leader who's tired of the status quo. I'm Jessica Miller Merrill, and you can access all 4 years of our podcasts, transcripts, and resources by visiting workology.com or workologypodcast.com.
Production services for the Workology podcast with Jessica Miller Merrill provided by TotalPicture.com.